Welcome back, algebra students. It's Mrs. Thompson. We are back at it, and we're in section 3.4, and we are graphing functions when no domain is given. So remember, in example 1, they told you exactly what to plug in to your function, and you did it. Now, they're going to give you a function, but you aren't given a domain of any kind. You have to come up with your domain. So I gave you some really good and I hope valuable information here, and I want you to kind of put a box around this because this is going to be really important. For step 1, you're going to choose 5 values for x, and what I told you, technically you can choose any number you want, okay? You don't have to choose those 5 numbers that I selected, but I have a really good reason why I selected those numbers. And I tell you that in the paragraph. I say, but for graphing purposes, I recommend that you cluster your numbers around the origin. So Mrs. Thompson would choose -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. That's exactly what I would choose if I were doing any kind of graphing. I would keep it clustered around the origin. Some of these numbers, if you choose 40, are you going to graph 40 on the x and then 81 on the y? I don't think so. I don't think you want to do numbers quite that large. So we're going to cluster it around the origin. Okay, so I created a table for you, as you can see here, showing -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. We just want to put enough points in there where we see a trend. We want to see, are we doing it the right way? Or is it looking the same way? Is it a straight line? You know, that kind of thing. That's what we're looking for. Okay, once we get those values plugged in and we figure out what y is, then we can graph and connect everything with a line just like we did in the last section. All right, so here's our equation. 2x plus 1 is equal to y. So in order to calculate y, I got to plug in each of those values in for the x. I got to multiply x times 2, and then I'm going to add 1 to it. So let's take it one at a time. Let's start here with -2. What's -2 times 2? -4. What's -4 plus 1? -3. Awesome. Go down here. Let's do this one. -1 times 2. That's -2. What's -2 plus 1? That's -1. Okay, let's do our third point. 0 times 2. That's 0. 0 plus 1, 1. Let's come here to +1. 2 times 1, that's 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. And then last one, +2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 plus 1 is 5. Okay? All those you can do in your head. You do it in the calculator, do it in your head. I tend to find it a little faster in my head, especially when they're that easy to calculate. And so we're going to graph these now. So I've created some space here for you where you can create an XY coordinate plane. And now we're going to graph each point, connect them with a line. All right, so let's do -2, -3. So back to -2 on the x, and then down to -3 on the y. There it is, third quadrant. -1, -1. Here it is, third quadrant again. 0, +1. Got it. 1, 3. Here we go. And then 2, 5. There we go. Just had to do a little quick counting. Now, they look like they're all in a straight line, and that is because they are a straight line. This function that you just did is something that we call a linear function. Do you see the word line in the word linear? That means it's a straight line. It doesn't have any bends or curves to it. And so let's connect all our dots. Remember, our trick from the last lesson was don't look at your pencil tip, look where you're going and draw a line. You don't need a straight edge if you do it that way, okay? And there's your line. This is a linear function. They are straight lines. They can be straight up and down. They can be horizontal, lean to the left, lean to the right. As long as they're straight, they're a linear function. Okay? Now let's move over here to letter B. This time our function is a little different. Y equals x squared. And remember I told you choose your 5 values for x, and I told you keep them clustered around the origin, okay, because that's going to keep your numbers low, keep your numbers small. And so let's plug in -2. So that's where we're going to put that -2 is where x is. And remember, I hammered you about this in section 3.3. I said if you're plugging in a negative number for a variable that's being squared, put parentheses around it. So when you plug in your calculator -2 squared, make sure you put parentheses in it. If you're not doing mentally and you're putting it into the calculator, put parentheses around -2 so the calculator knows what you mean, okay? The calculator is only as smart as the person using it. So it's going to do what you tell it to do. So if you don't put parentheses around it, it's not going to know that you want to square -2, okay? Well, -2 times -2 is +4. You're going to do it again, and you're going to do -1 squared. And that's -1 times -1, which is +1. Then you're going to do 0 squared. 0 times 0 is 0. Then you're going to do 1 squared. 1 times 1 is 1. And then you're finally going to finish up with 2 squared. 2 times 2 is 4. If you square any number, you're going to get it positive. Just like absolute value. If you take the absolute value of any number, it's going to be positive. The same is true for squaring a number. Okay? Now we're going to graph these points, and we're going to connect those dots. Okay? So it looks like we have some negatives. So again, I'm going to do an XY coordinate plane. I'm going to go ahead and do all 4 quadrants. Okay? You do the same on your paper. Get that XY coordinate plane prepared. And let's see what this thing looks like. So let's do -2 on the X and then +4 on the Y. And then mark that. Okay? Let's do -1 and then on the X and then +1 on the Y. Mark that. And then we're going to do 0, 0. Okay, that's the origin. And then 1, 1. And then 2, 4. Okay, clearly not a straight line. It's not supposed to be. If you ever have a squared, your biggest exponent is a 2 in your equation, this is what we call a quadratic function. Gosh, in this one section you have done absolute value functions. We just did linear functions, and now this is a quadratic function. And these are parabolas where they're curved. And they can open up or they can open down, but they're curvy. And so you wouldn't do a straight line. This isn't a straight line, it's a curve. And so I just kind of swing it out like that, and then swing it out to the left, and then that's how I draw them. And that's called a parabola, or technical name quadratic function. It's pretty neat. You don't worry about memorizing quadratic function. You can, if that locks in your head, go ahead and hold on to it. But we will hammer that when we get to that chapter. I will make sure that's deeply ingrained. You don't have to learn it necessarily today. What we want to learn today is how to choose 5 values, plug them in to find the y, and graph the points, and thus graph the function. That's what we're after today. That's our goal today. All right, this one I left for you. Try this one by yourself. Remember, y is already by itself. There's no rearranging. You need to choose your domain, and I told you my opinion on what I think you should do for your domain, and then plug those in and graph your points, and connect those points with a line or a curve. It'll be a curve if it's a quadratic function. It'll be lines if it's a linear function or absolute value function. Okay, give it your best shot. Let's see, code word today. Oh my goodness. All right, basketball is getting ready to start really soon, and I am a huge UConn women's basketball fan. I love UConn. So UConn Huskies, go women's Huskies, go girls. So UConn Huskies is your code word for today. Thanks for listening.